Oh hey, didn't see you there.
Hello friends, welcome back to Momo, my kitchen and my channel. Today we're going to dive straight into all the recipes we used to make the brown butter, salted caramel, and fig cake that we assembled in our last video, which I'll link up top right now. So for our cake batter, the first thing we need to do is brown our butter because it needs time to chill. Just like my traditional conservatively minded Asian parents when I told them I was not going to be a doctor, lawyer, nor engineer. Nay, a pastry chef. That chilling process has taken 11 years to be exact. The good news though is that your brown butter will require much less time than that. Thank God for relativity. Melt your butter in a larger than you think you will need size pot because the butter will foam up significantly as the water evaporates. Once the foaming stops, this is the point at which you'll have to start really paying attention. Use a whisk to occasionally scrape up the bits of milk solids that will stick to the bottom of the pot and brown. For both brown butter and caramel, I suggest going a hair darker than you may initially be tempted to because light can play tricks on your eyes, and it's always difficult to gauge the true color of something in a pot. More on this later with the salted caramel. Once the butter reaches a nice, roasty toasty, dark golden brown and your niece and nephew run screaming into the kitchen asking what smells so good, you'll know you're ready to relieve your hardworking pot of said brown butter and pour this delicious nectar of the gods into a metal vessel. I personally like to go directly into the bowl of my stand mixer because it needs to be there anyway, and a good rule of the kitchen is to always put something in its final resting place when possible to maximize efficiency and to cut down on transfer time, dirty dishes, etc. Don't get rid of this pot, by the way, we are coming back to it in a minute.
BRB, dude.
So for the butter, let this hang out in your fridge until it solidifies. This is what we're going to do here, but if you're in a rush, you can place it in an ice bath to speed up the process. In the meantime, we're going to tip our milk into the pot that we've just browned our butter in. 1, to rinse out all the brown butter, aka flavor, that we possibly can, and 2, to warm up our milk, which needs to be at room temp anyway. Set the milk aside and then give the dry ingredients a good whisk just to combine everything. Once the butter is firm but not cold, cream it with the brown and white sugars for 5 to 6 minutes on medium speed until the mix becomes so pale and fluffy that you want to bury your head in it ostrich style and forget about all of your problems. Then add the eggs one at a time, mixing in between each addition in order to maintain the emulsion of fat and water. Once all the eggs are incorporated, add the vanilla extract and give your bowl a good scrape. Then alternate adding the dry ingredients and the milk, starting and ending with the dry. Doing this little dance in this particular order is very important, 1, in preventing the batter from being overmixed, and 2, for maintaining this danged emulsion we've worked so hard to have up until this point. You might be wondering why bookend the process with the dry? Glad you asked, you brilliant mind, you. Starting with the dry ingredients allows the particles to be coated in fat, which precludes gluten formation, which leads to tough cakes, which nobody wants. Ending with the dry helps to absorb any moisture in the batter that's hanging around outside the emulsion. Once the last addition of dry ingredients is in the bowl, mix the batter just until combined. Don't overmix at this point, even if there are still visible bits of flour. I prefer to take the bowl and the attachment out and finish mixing by hand if necessary. Once you have your luscious batter, divide it into greased cake pans with parchment on the bottoms. For this 2-tier cake, we're using 2 6x3 inch pans and 1 4x4 inch, but of course you can use any size you want and simply adjust the baking time as needed. Level off the tops as best you can. Here I'm using a handy dandy baby bowl scraper that was a gift because it just fits so perfectly inside these pans, but you can use your spatula, a palette knife, or even the back of a spoon to do so. Shake the tap the pans to finish leveling the batter and to help eliminate any pockets of air inside. Bake in a 325 degree oven until the cakes reach an internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the cakes are completely cool, wrap each one in 2 layers of cling film and refrigerate or freeze until you're ready to use them. Now for the cream cheese frosting, which couldn't be any easier or more delicious. Paddle together the softened butter and cream cheese just to equalize the texture. Then add powdered sugar, salt, and vanilla extract. Beat this mix for 5 to 7 minutes on medium speed until super fluffy and homogeneous. That's it, I could honestly eat a shoe covered in this stuff. Lastly, we have our salted caramel, so we're going to hit the stove again. I mean, not literally, don't do that please. With your cream and butter on deck, melt the sugar over medium heat while using a candy or wooden spoon to stir, particularly around the edges to ensure that everything is melting as evenly as possible and that parts of the sugar don't caramelize before other bits of it aren't even melted. The sugar will inevitably form some clumps, but fret not, gently tap on them with your spoon to break them up and help them melt merrily along. Now, as I mentioned before, the true color of a caramel is exceedingly difficult to discern while it's inhabiting the pot, which is why I prefer to use a white spoon when possible so I can see the color more clearly. Otherwise, I like to also keep a bit of scrap parchment paper around. And if you're anything like me, you'll have an abundance of randomly sized, otherwise useless bits of parchment paper left over from previous projects because you simply cannot bear to throw them out. Oh, don't mind that errant screen, it's just my attempt to capture B-reel while simultaneously trying to avoid burning either the caramel or myself. In all seriousness, please don't try this at home, kids. Caramel, by definition, is sugar reaching dangerously high temperatures. Remember, I'm a professional. So, anyway, use this paper to carefully test the color of your caramel until it reaches your desired shade. I like to go until it's a dark amber, 1 for maximum flavor and 2 for the proper texture. If the caramel is too light before you add the cream, the resulting sauce will be thin and runny, which could work for some applications, but it's definitely not what we want for this caramel drip. Once it reaches this dark amber, turn off the heat and add the cream and butter. Here I'm using leftover whipped cream, which is a great kitchen hack, but normally this would be in liquid form. Finish the sauce with vanilla extract and a coarse salt to taste. For reference, this is the consistency that the caramel should be once it's completely cooled down. Transfer it to a storage container and now you're all set to build your own cake. One final thing to note though, if you'll need to keep your cake in the fridge for more than a few hours before serving, I do suggest using something more temperature stable such as a ganache for the drip. Sugar, which is the majority ingredient in caramel, is incredibly hygroscopic and will pull all the moisture out of the air, causing the caramel to form condensation, leading directly to its ultimate demise. No one ever really mentions how a caramel drip cake ages, but it's important to know what you're signing up for, so I thought I would show you what it really looks like after all the pretty, pristine blog and IG photos have been taken. If you are less superficial than the rest of us though and care only about how it tastes, bravo, first of all, and second of all, disregard these last 50 seconds of your life that you'll never get back. So that's it for this rapid fire recipe tutorial. Phew, I feel like I can finally take a breath now. Please gently tap the thumbs up if you're excited to try out any of these recipes, and feel free to also tap that subscribe button if you'd like to help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and or you just want to watch more of my struggles with dropping cake and filming in places where my phone really shouldn't be. Next up, I'm thinking the oven. Last one there is a rotten egg.